What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the 20 Percenters, where we focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. And I've got the pleasure of sitting down with the Cuban Missile Crisis, UFC middleweight, Julian Marquez. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man?
Dude, thanks for making the time, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys came out here today.
Yeah. We met 2 years ago now, after Eric's fight in Omaha.
Yeah.
And when I found out you fought 185, just like when I look at him fighting 185, it's like, holy shit. Because you guys are legit big guys. You know what I mean? Like, you should probably, for all intents and purposes, stop at 205 and fight there. But I find it interesting that Eric was actually just interviewed. They were like, you keep going back and forth, lately at 185, 205. Where do you want to stay? Because I guess the UFC is asking him to fight light heavy, but he wants to play down there at 185. He's like, when I land a bomb at 185, it has a totally different effect than trying to drop somebody at 205.
Without a doubt, man.
So he's like, I'd much rather be down at 185.
What's crazy is that 205 pounders, most people don't realize these guys are cutting from 230, 240, but like their percentage of fat or their muscular structure is it's way smaller. Like me, I can walk around 220, but like I can easily cut down safely to 180 pounds.
Okay.
So when I go down to 100 or 205, man, I'm going to where these guys are, can safely cut to 195. So they're within 10 pounds of their safe cut. Yeah. So their strength and muscle, their frame, their body, their just everything, they're heavy hitters, man.
Right.
And I'm a heavy hitter. Could I hang out in the 205 pound division? Yeah, but that's not my division.
Okay. I got you.
They're way different, man. It's like going from, jumping 20 pounds is huge.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. When you hit somebody at 85, you make them move. When you hit somebody at 205, you're just like, oh my God, man, how do you continue?
Yeah. Well, when he took the fight against Thiago on short notice, and they just stood in the middle of the ring and just traded hands, I asked him about that shit, and I was like, what's going through your mind? And he was like, dude, honestly, sometimes you just got to bite down on that mouthpiece and see what happens.
Oh, dude, he did. He grinded, man. That was a tough fight, man. Especially taking someone of that caliber and experience, a fighter, going up in weight class. Even though Thiago was an 85er, he went up, but he's not a small guy,
right?
And I think he struggles to make 85, man, because that dude, I've seen him in person. He's huge, and hitting him, like when Eric hit him with the first punch and he just like kind of walked through it, I was just like, dude, this is going to be a long fight. This is going to be a long fight.
Yeah. Well, so how'd you get into this game? What's your journey? Man,
a wild story. You remember back in I want to say 2008, whenever Jack 3D, the pre-workout.
Yeah.
Before they banned the supplement and they came back with the remake.
Yeah.
So that stuff was that definitely wasn't USADA approved at the time. Let's be honest. So I would take that after work, and I would go lift, and I would be 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd be lifting, and then for some reason inside of Snap Fitness.
Okay. What were you doing for work? Are you working out at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Dude, I would serve tables, so I'd work doubles.
Got it.
So I wasn't able to, I worked at Red Robin. But I worked at Red Robin, and I would work doubles because in order to make money, you make one shift, you're barely making 100. You work 2 shifts, you can make a little bit more money.
Yeah.
So I'd work doubles. I'd work, in Kansas City, our minimum wage was $2.13 an hour as a server.
Yeah.
And you had to claim your tips. So I wasn't making that much money unless I worked hours. So I'd work 40 plus hours a week. And then I would lift at night right after. And it was stupid because I would take Jack 3D to get myself pumped up, but then I wouldn't go to sleep,
Right.
So I would sit there, and every night for some reason, I don't know what it is. I think it was just the TV channel or the person that owns Snap Fitness. They'd have, UFC fights all the time. So you're hyped up on Jack 3D. You feel like you can lift a tire, tow truck. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching these fights, and throughout my whole life, my family's watched boxing, like from Oscar De La Hoya, Mayweather fight.
Yeah.
We'd have parties at the house. We'd watch old Pride fights. We'd watch the first UFC. Like, we watched it all, and then I just finally saw it. And then, like, one day, you know, I didn't have wrestling and everything. I was working out, and I looked up, and I was like, man, I'm talking to myself like, I can do this, man. And I'm lifting weights like, I can beat that guy. And I just kept saying that. Then shortly after, one of my friends from high school, his name is Mac Bailey, he actually just showed up at my house one day, and he gave me a call, didn't know what I was doing. He's like, hey, man, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm just sitting on the couch, you know, watching whatever TV, resting. He goes, you know, you don't have work? I was like, nah. He goes, I'm outside your house. I need you to jump in the car, get your gym clothes on. This gym wants fighters or wants wrestlers. And I was like, what gym? He's like, MMA gym. Just get in the car. All right. So I left the house, went into the car, rode with him. He drove.
So you come from wrestling?
Yeah, came from wrestling. Started out with that.
Okay. Did you do anything after high school?
I went to college for a little bit, but just wasn't for me.
Okay.
Ended up leaving college after 2 years, and that's why I busted out at Red Robin.
Okay.
So working there, doing that, he gave me a call, and, you know, talking to myself, I was ready to go into an MMA gym, but I just didn't have that final pull trigger. You know? And then he came through and picked me up and went there, and they had a heavyweight, which was like a pro heavyweight, had a good amount of fights. And he's a big old guy. And in high school, I wrestled, and college a little bit, I wrestled heavyweight.
Okay.
So I walked around 197, and these guys were, you know, way bigger than me, so I knew how to work with heavyweights.
Okay.
So I go there, and I pretty much took it to their heavyweight. Just kept picking them up, slamming them down. I didn't really know how to fight at the time. I didn't know how to throw hands. I just knew that I had a good double leg and a very powerful double leg, and my will could push through it. So I kept taking them down. After the day, they came up to me and was like, hey, you know, you're going to start fighting. And I was like, okay. He goes, this is the thing. You fight for us, you can have this. And they gave me a bag full of all equipment from, you know, safety gloves, the boxing gloves, the shin guards, a mouthpiece, the cup, to clothes, to everything, an entire bag. So I was my first sponsorship. That was the first thing I did. It was a Grindhouse in Lee Summit, Missouri, which is now Glory MMA and Fitness. So it just kind of just started out from there. Just went through there and through fighting. As I started doing it more and more, I just kind of screwed my head on straight and actually went back to college, went to a community college, and to finishing my degree.
Good for you.
And still fighting and everything. So it led to me to be, I guess, more disciplined.
Yeah. It
kind of controlled me and made me who I am today.
Sure. Here's an interesting question, because my only frame of reference as far as MMA is concerned is Eric. And he comes from football, and really that's all they ever fucking talk about is him being a linebacker, right? How do you make the shift from wrestling exclusively to picking up all the other skill sets, like the contact part of the game, throwing hands, striking, all that? How is that adaptation for you, picking up those other skill sets?
So, like with wrestling, to adapt from wrestling to fighting isn't different, man. If you ever watch a high level wrestling match, or you ever watch these guys practice in the rooms, man, there's times where you literally throw hands against your training partners. You're sitting there wrestling, even though you can't really close a fist and punch.
Right.
You're hitting a collar tie with an open hand hard. You're grinding. You're going in for a double leg while the other person is trying to rip your arms off. So you have that grappling aspect to where you have that mentality of combat already.
Okay.
You have those nerves. You have that power, that stress on the muscle, that constant fatigue, and that long push of, you know, high intensity training.
Yeah.
So when you went into fighting, the hardest thing wasn't, you know, taking people down and learning how to combat with each other. It was more of boxing or to do anything stand up, because you spent majority of your life in a wrestling stance, which your hand touches the floor. Now you're standing all the way tall and your hand doesn't touch the floor. And now you have to drop your level, throw in a punch to get in a takedown. So it wasn't hard. It was, it took time for sure to get comfortable with the stand-up. It took you a long time with rounds of boxing, of kickboxing, and starting to blend that in with smaller gloves and move the takedown. So I think wrestlers are probably the best people are the best athletes to go into MMA because of the background in itself. You know, when they get into that grind position, when they get into that you're down on your back and you're 2 rounds deep and you need to dig down into deep waters, you're bred for it.
How's that transition where in wrestling you're doing everything you can to not be on your back? And then as I've started rolling, getting my son into jiu-jitsu and rolling a little bit, that's actually a very comfortable position to be in. How was that mindset shift?
Oh, it was a complete flip. So I'll tell you, every fight or every jiu-jitsu round or every match that I ever had at the beginning of my career, I always tried my hardest to get on top because I wasn't comfortable on my back.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was losing because I was on my back, but like when you get taken or when you in your jiu-jitsu, like it's a give-take type of deal when you roll. Like you can't be going 100% all the time, which I was because my mentality through wrestling was like, we're going hard.
Yeah.
And if you took me down, I got angry. And if I got angry, I mean, it went from an easy, like light day to we're going 100% because that's what I was bred for.
Sure.
And it took a long time. It took a lot of time to where I got beat up, man. You know, they had to re-break you. And I wouldn't use the words break, but they had to remold you.
Sure.
You know, because like when you go against guys, like when I started out, I was with James Krause. James Krause, you know, again, another UFC fighter. And he has a guillotine, which is just unreal. It's a $100,000 guillotine. He won 2 checks on it in his first fight in the UFC with the fight of the night and the submission of Sam Stout. But when he got a hold of your neck, you know, you ain't going nowhere. You're probably going to sleep. So the thing is that, you know, with wrestlers, when we shoot with our head up.
Okay.
You don't shoot with your head down because when someone sprawls, then you lost your whole entire form. You lost your strength. So you shoot with your head up with James. James just gets that guillotine. So, I mean, he helped mold me and get me to realize, like, hey, go lighter and lighter. So then jiu-jitsu was very easy.
Okay.
But the hardest part was that same mentality transition to fighting, to boxing.
Okay.
So I'm throwing at, you know, 215 pounds, throwing 100% punches because that's all I know.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's 100%. So it took a lot of tough-nosed people to help break me, and a lot of skilled fighters to help break me and mold me into a better transition.
Okay. All right. How long was your amateur career?
Oh, man, my amateur career was a few years, man. I only had, I think, 12 fights in my amateur career, and I went 10-2. Lost the first 2 fights at the beginning.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it was a few years, like 3 years probably.
Okay. What are you doing was the UFC always the goal? Like once you got into the game?
Yeah. I think that's everyone's goal when you first started out, especially at the time where, like when I started, the UFC was like the highest point you could have. Like you had Bellator, don't get me wrong, and it was cool to, like, regardless, one of them, like, you wanted to fight for it, but like the UFC was the reason. Like when I sat there in that Snap Fitness gym lifting at 2:00 in the morning, hyped on Jack 3D, looking at the TV screen, it wasn't a Bellator fight. It was watching Anderson Silva just smoke everybody.
Okay,
and like it was that, and that was where I wanted to go.
Sure. So when you, what are you doing to make ends meet in the amateur game? Did you subscribe to the lifestyle, find a job coaching and training and like just being immersed in the gym, or were you doing a whole bunch of like loading boxes at UPS in your off time so that you could afford training? Like what was your lifestyle like in the amateur days?
So what I would do, like I said, I worked at Red Robin, I worked at Granite City, I worked at...
So you just kept that up?
Yeah, serving jobs. I would find serving jobs, but then I started working for this place called, it's Power and Light District by Cordish Company, and it's a district of bars in Kansas City next to the Sprint Center downtown. So I worked for Tango Said Cantina at the time, which is Fuego now, and I started out as a bouncer.
Okay.
So I started out as a bouncer, moved my way up from bouncer to bar back to bartender. I was bartending at hotel, casino, hotel nightclub. And what I did was I was just constantly finding the job that helped benefit me and help work with it. So I'd work I worked the bartender, bar back. I'd work at a tumbling school. I used to help kids and spot kids at Melrose School of Dance.
Cool.
1 day a week, which helped me work on flexibility. Mm-hmm. And then I would still serve tables. But during the time that I wasn't there, I'd be training.
Yeah.
So I'd literally live myself in the gym. Like during the hours, after hours, I call people up one-on-one. We do our own thing there. Mm-hmm. We just drill. We just train. If we couldn't make it to practice, I'd connect with those people. We'd have the key, and we'd just go and train at the gym.
Okay.
So my whole life, when I dove in, I went 100% in because my dad would be pissed.
Okay.
You know, I like when I started fighting, like I didn't tell my dad.
Why?
I don't know. Okay. It was a really weird concept. For some reason, I thought like, you know, I just left college. I'm sitting there working. My dad's. I don't know. I didn't tell my dad. I took 3 months. I was training for 3 months, changing my body, changing my form, changing everything. And then, you know, they're like, we want to book you a fight. I didn't want to book a fight. And I was like, I want to immerse myself for 6 months to kind of figure it out.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry, we can get you a fight. Like, let's go get you a fight. And I was like, oh, well, I got to tell my dad. They're like, well, go tell him. And I don't know what it was. I don't know why. I can't. Looking back on it, I can't explain to you why I didn't. I just didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I thought he was gonna be like ashamed of me for fighting. You know, like
was he pissed when you left college?
You know, in the ways that I left, yeah, he was kind of like. It wasn't that he wasn't upset. He just always wanted me in school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like he's like, and I wasn't in school. I wasn't doing anything to.
Are you first generation American?
Yeah.
Did your parents?
No, my parents. My dad moved from Cuba.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am the first generation for.
Yeah. So like I get that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And
like
my dad.
That's a big fucking deal.
Yeah. My dad went to school. He went to college. He got his master's degree. He even went back. Like he's done everything.
So we had a gentleman on the show before he made the shift over to from Feed Me Fuel Me to 20 percenters. A guy named Bert Martinez.
Yeah.
And he's Cuban as well, and he talks about the immigrant mentality and how when his parents came over, the expectation of their kids, him and his siblings, was to take advantage of everything that America has to offer. And from that generation, the number one priority is education because that unlocks all the doors, right? That's the perception. So like I completely get it, man.
Yeah,
you know,
it was.
Like I've had that discussion. So like, you know, for your dad, like the importance of education is like numero uno.
No, without a doubt. My dad, so like he went there. Like my dad grew up in Cuba. He lived in Cuba until he was 2 years old.
Okay.
But my grandfather took the big leap and was like,
okay,
we're gonna get him over there. And he actually sent my grandma, my dad, and family over, and he stayed in Cuba. And he was trying to get his way back. So. Yeah. There's a whole nother podcast on that one, but his whole thing is like schooling was going to get you to where it is. Yeah. All of my uncles, and my dad's brothers and everything, they all have degrees.
Yeah.
And even on my mom's side, they all have degrees to where, you know, they went to school, they put their time in, and that's the success pattern in the 90s. To be honest, in the 90s, like if you didn't have an education, you weren't going to do anything, or you weren't going to get paid as much.
Sure.
In the 2000s, started being that. It wasn't until this era it started changing because of all the opportunities and everything else with social media, the internet, and podcasting even. Yeah. It definitely switches it all up. So when I had to sit there and tell my dad, I remember walking down the stairs and I took my training bag. Okay. And I was like, hey, man. I was like, look, I'm fighting now. And I just gave it to him. And he just like, what? So we had this long conversation of why I didn't tell him. And I was like, I really don't know.
Everything was all good, though?
Yeah, everything was good. And I was like, dude,
that's so funny.
I was like, I have to fight. I was like, they want to book me a fight. He goes, all right, well, we got to start training. So my dad was like a big help.
That's awesome, man.
So
yeah,
he would wake up. He would have to be at work at 6 o'clock. Well, he'd leave the house around 6:05 every day. And he would start, like, he would wake up early, like 5 o'clock in the morning, wake me up. We'd go outside in the front, and my dad would sit there uncomfortably. You could tell he hated it, but he did it. And I would do sprints. I would warm up. I would do sprints. And we do have these different type of like workouts that we would do, like where I'd grab a towel and I'd hold the towel like this, and my dad would put all of his weight down until my arm broke. So I'd have to hold it up, and the same thing pulling down. He would hold it up, and I'd pull it down until my arm's fatigued, or I'd sit down. We went through this like little, just prison style rule, workout. So we just kept doing that, and just throughout my career, just
how cool was it for you to, like, in no uncertain terms, come out about fighting, and then your dad be like your ultimate support system? Oh man, it's been amazing. So my first loss, this is crazy. My very first loss I ever had, I got flash drops. So when fighters get hit and like they hit the canvas, but then they pop back up. Okay. You just get a quick drop. Yeah, yeah. So I got flash dropped. I remember dropping to the ground, and then I like pulled up and to go for guard or to go and like defend yourself. Yeah, and 14 seconds in, and then the ref already jumped in, and I was sitting there like this. The other guy was over me, and I was like, "Well, damn, dude." And there's nothing you can't argue on that. Right. At that point, like I just is that why? Because I've actually always asked myself this question: when somebody does get dropped, and then their opponent comes in and gets those 1 or 2 extra licks, is that why? Because it might be a flash drop. Like there might be a slim chance that you could come back to life and defend yourself. Yeah. So when you see someone fall, depending on how they fall and the direction they fall in, like if you get hit and you stiff board up, and then you fall straight back, that's not a flash drop. You're over. You're pretty much done. Okay. But the way I did, I came in for a punch and I got hit, and then I fell forward. Okay. So when I hit the ground, I hit on all fours, and I threw myself down to my back because last thing I'm going to do is run up and stand up. But I threw myself down to protect, and it's like, all right, this guy's going to come to the ground, try to throw ground and pound. But no, the ref stepped in, and he stopped it, and I was just like, and it was Bobby Volker. He actually fought in the UFC, and I was like, damn it, dude. And my dad was really mad. He was like, dude, he's like, you weren't out. He goes, you got hit for sure, but you weren't out. And he goes, all right, I'm going to become a judge. I'm going to become a ref. So my dad dove in and did all these courses and classes, and he started judging and reffing, actually. And since I started that, I mean, that was, in 2011. Okay. So he started reffing, and he actually had a couple fights that happened the same way, where a fighter came in, he got hit, and he fell to his hands. And he ends up getting up. My dad took a rush to stop, and he pulled himself off to wait a second. Yeah. And that fighter ended up coming back and winning on both times. Yeah. So my dad's done that, and he just started diving into it to now where he's in a judge. So he judges for Invicta fights. Okay. Titan FC, any major organization that comes through Kansas City, my dad judges, or a lot of the local shows. My dad's one of the judges, and as I dove into it, my dad dove into it. Wow. That's awesome, man. My dad will call me up on everything when it comes to fighting. Yeah. And we'll sit there and break down fights with each other. We'll discuss it. So holy shit. It helps out a lot, man. Yeah, man. Tell me about the business of fighting. Man. In which aspect? That's I've heard we were talking about the 125er who was Tim, who came in essentially as a company man. Whatever you need, I'm there. Fight short notice, I'll look the part, dress the part, blah blah blah. Has success and gets cut anyway, and then comes back later on as his true self and says whatever he wants. Puts his personality out on display, and he's experiencing more success because of it. So what's the business of the UFC like from a fighter standpoint? Because when did you come into the UFC? Before or after Reebok? After. Okay. Yeah, he had it before. Okay. Did that corporate sponsorship sweep that Reebok pulled off take money out of fighters' pockets? So with other fighters, I can't speak. I've heard that rumor. I can't speak for other fighters. There's if you go online and read stuff up, there's fighters that lost a lot of money because they had sponsorships through certain companies. Yep. And now they can't use that they lost it through that. But in a way, it's starting to you have to change certain things to build. And
as you can see, the UFC is starting to change things.
Yeah.
Fight pay is starting to go up more, and things are starting to go more because the more money your company's worth, the more money you could pay people out.
Right.
In 2000, I want to say in 2012 or 2010, like your entry fighter pay, you're making like 5 and 5.
Okay. 5 to show, 5 to win?
Yeah, 5. Okay. Like, and then don't even quote me on that. It could be even lower. It could be 3 and 3.
Okay.
You're making $6,000 for a fight. Like back in the day, it was bad. Like say 2008. Let's go for factual.
Sure.
Like there's people that fought for titles that didn't make the amount of money they're making now. But now with all this switch to corporation, they made it more into a business. They made it more, more corporate to where you could put it on TV, where you could put it on ESPN, stuff like that.
Right.
To where you can get more sponsors. The more sponsors can generate income. And now, the starting UFC contract is starting at $10,000 and $10,000.
Okay.
So it may have taken away from people personally and their connections that they have with brands during the fight.
Yeah.
But it's building it up more. So now there's fighters if you fight and you're doing successful and good, you're making a good amount of money.
Okay.
More money than you would be making if you were sitting with a master's degree instead of a desk.
Right.
Right. So it's about bettering yourself to become that person, focusing on that, but at the same time not losing yourself.
Right.
Which a lot of people do. Like we talked a little earlier. It's like when you come into money, you change who you are. You start buying big things.
Yeah.
You see fighters that sit there and they'll buy these like F-250s and they're diesel. They have rims on it and like a surround sound system. And you're like, dang, dude, this car's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But then something happens.
You spent your whole fight check on that truck, though.
Yeah. For what? Like you don't have a boat. You don't have a trailer. You don't work in a yard. You're like, why are you hauling? Why do you have this big, this big vehicle? But it's like a give and play. Like you can buy things to have fun with, but like you have to sit there and remember where you started from. You have to remember those shitty days at Red Robin where you were grinding at and you just hated it, and you remember sitting there being talked down by the guests and sitting there and just like, man, I just busted my ass to the table, got, $1 on a $45 check. You're like, damn, that sucks. That wasted my time. And now you got all this money. You got to remember how to spend money like you did when you didn't have that. Or you got to put it in the right places where you make investments, or you put money into things that can generate income outside of it in case you do get injured, in case you do. Right. You're unable to get that income that you have with the UFC.
Right. So what's your long game?
Man,
what's the big picture?
First off, you're looking at it. It's Julian Marquez right here. I'm starting a modeling gig. No. The big picture, obviously, is to make the most amount of money that you can while you're in there. Yeah. But in the process, to create a business or to create a platform or to create
a brand
itself that can be pushed and it can help change. Yeah. So whatever it may be in the process, there's a lot of things that I'm working on right now. Some of it I can't talk about yet. Some of it I'm still in the process of figuring it out. But what it is, it's me trying to create something and using all the money that I have to focus on this creation and amongst other things to whenever it's time to go, that I don't have to sit there and turn around and be like, oh shit, like I got to go work at another serving job, or I have to go finish out my degree and go start absolutely late. So like there's things that I'm working on now. I'm talking with partnerships with companies at the moment to try to, cause I don't ask for sponsorships. The difference between me and other fighters ask for sponsorships. Like, hey man, you guys are 20%ers. Like, you guys want to throw me some money and I'll wear your t-shirt and I'll make an Instagram post? Nah, I don't want that, because that's just that money ends. Right. When that money ends, then you have nothing. When you talk about a partnership and you talk to be a spokesperson, or you talk to be somebody that can help change and help influence others, and you build the brand with you.
You're trying to do the Shaq thing.
Dude, he was smart. Yeah. I'm actually trying to do the Baron Davis, my bad. Baron Davis. Baron Davis.
I know who he is. Yeah.
So Baron Davis, he's the most interesting person. So Baron Davis never had a manager.
Really?
Yeah, Baron Davis he did all of his stuff, his management, everything like that. And to listen to his story, I actually got a day where, thanks to UFC, they had a brand building opportunity place where they brought Baron Davis in and they were talking. There was no UFC fighter in this, by the way. It was during the summer league where all the basketball players came in.
Right.
So there was a couple basketball players. There's a Ohio State, college or Ohio State wrestler. But there was no fighters. I was the only one. And I was the only one asking questions when I was sitting there.
Really?
They had all these corporate people, these millionaires, these people that had these successful business, these strategies, these what you have to do, how to make your social media better, this, that, and the other. And Baron Davis got up and he was talking about, well, like in a shorter, less, longer form, he spoke that he never had a manager. When he got signed, before he got signed, they give you a certain amount of money. And they give you a certain amount of money to help, you take that money and you can give it to a manager, and then that manager would handle your whole thing. Or you can keep that money and roll the dice. And he's like, well, I know how good I was. He grew up in an area where he had a lot of high friends where it was okay. So he took that money and he used it on himself instead of going there to pay somebody to back him. So he took his money and he gets signed, and then he ended up having, I think it was Sprite. They wanted him to do Sprite or some other you get a shoe product and you get a drink.
Okay.
As a basketball player, especially jumping in, they sponsor you.
Okay.
And one of the drinks, one of his buddies called him up. He's like, "Hey man, this drink's starting up. They want to talk to you." He's like, "I think it's a good thing. I think you should go and talk to him." Baron went over and had a conversation with these people, and he sat there and they're like, "Well, this is what we can offer you. We can offer you like $15,000. We can offer you $15,000 and you can, we can go from there and you'll be our sponsored athlete and you'll grow with us." And instead of Baron being like, "I'll take that $15,000, he's like, "Well, how about this? You give me X amount of equity in your company. I'll be the spokesperson for yourself. And then I will generate, or, I'll sit there and do that and we can work on that."
Yeah.
So then he ended up being the person for that. He took equity, and then he started building that company. And that company's Vitamin Water.
Oh shit!
Most people didn't know that he was in Vitamin Water.
Okay.
And he was like, "Man, I just stayed hush about it. I stayed on the back end." But what I did was, I put, all my energy towards that because it can grow up. And he had a phone call where they're like, "Hey man, what artist should we, sponsor? What artist should we back? Should we back Jay-Z or should we back 50 Cent?" And it was his decision. He was like, "Man, why would you, think about it. You're on stage, you're doing this, and Jay-Z takes his shirt off and sprays all Vitamin Water on him. No one's going to want to see that." But then you look at 50 Cent's sex appeal, class, has good music, everything. He takes his shirt off, he had Vitamin Water, and then boom. Then their stuff blew up, and then he's making all this money, and he has all these other type of businesses, all these type of income and these different streams of revenue. And it was all started because he believed in himself. Yeah. And that's the one thing here. I do have the UFC and it's a good platform, but the thing is, I know what people like. I know what people want. You have so many fighters that do the same thing over and over and no one realizes it. But when someone breaks that algorithm, they become something that everybody wants. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do is once, I get these fights in and then I break this algorithm that I've been, I'm just being myself. I'm just different, funny, fun. I enjoy life. Yeah. I don't sit there and talk crap. I don't sit there. I just have fun. So I know I'm a very likable person. I know all the stuff that I have. And in that process, I'm going to slowly build stuff up to where I use that platform that the UFC have provided me to help generate different streams of income.
That's awesome, man.
That's the
smart.
best way.
So smart. It's always good to meet athletes that see past their career. I was featured in a documentary called Beyond the Game. Shout out to Susan Sember, who put that whole thing together. And you remember the 30 for 30 broke? Yeah. About all the athletes that made it and then lost it all? Yeah. This is the opposite. This documentary is about athletes that are doing what you're talking about. And it takes a lot of, some of them are just really fortunate to have good counsel. And then there's others that are, leverage the education that athletics got them. And then there's others that use their platform to outlast their athletic career. And it sounds like that's what you're trying to put together. Yeah. And that's awesome, man. But you also give back.
You have to.
Yeah. Tell me about Payback. I think that's super cool.
Payback. So Payback is this program. Ricardo Laguna, shout out to you, homie. He does a lot of things out here in Vegas, and he contacted me. He's like, hey, man, these people are looking for influencers or people that are in the public eye to come back and talk to kids to kind of help, let them know that everyone goes through struggles, like not to give up and to like focus and bite down, and it sucks. But you go to different high schools throughout the Vegas area that are, very in rough areas where they're, if you look at a map, they're closer to low income, low income areas in Vegas. And, you sit there and you tell your story, you tell your struggle, you tell how you did stuff to kind of give them a little bit more ease at saying, we all have problems like in the house when we were kids. We've all lost somebody. We've all been there, and you're not alone. And you kind of, what you try to do is, you try to, I don't want to say like you're trying to like get these kids to love you, but you kind of get them, like, at least if you tell your story, you may affect one person. Out of 100 people, I may affect one person. That one person follows me, and I could change them. But all those kids say they follow me and they see it and they watch me, and like I'm a person that keeps everything real. So like when on Instagram, I talk about my struggles. I talk about everything. Like on Twitter, like I'm not sitting there trying to be like, oh, when you look at my Instagram, Julian's out here on a yacht. Julian's sitting here. Like I keep it real. I keep him, like I had a post the other day, and I was hungry, and I had a sandwich, and I just had mustard all over it, and we took a photo, and it's like the struggle of a fighter, and it's like just a piece of bread with mustard on it, but it's real though, man. Like I've been to those points where I didn't have the income to purchase food, so I made those little
mustard sandwiches.
Yeah, those heats. Those are the fire on that Wonder Bread bread. But and it's kind of giving back and showing them, and like these kids reach out. Yeah. And I keep it separated too, because again, I don't want them to constantly reach out and like constantly ask. But I sit there and I try to give back towards them in one shape or form. Like as I sit there and I walk around every day, as I talk, I try to make sure if they ever listen to a podcast, they hear the real me, and they hear that, and they can help them and kind of calm them and get them focusing on. Yeah. It is, and Payback has actually helped out a lot of schools and a lot of kids. We also do another thing I get with some of the police officers, some of the school police officers, because there's a lot of different types of, like there's fights in schools. Kids bring guns to schools out here, and over dumb things, man. Like the first time I ever did it, they'll have different catchphrases. Like the last one we did was Pops with Cops. Okay. So you have ice cream, like popsicles with cops, or you have cocoa with a popo, which was it was hot chocolate. Yeah. It was during like the winter time out here, which isn't winter. But you have hot chocolate with the cops, and we had a DJ Ocho there who sits there and puts music on in the quad where they have their lunch area. Everybody comes out. We have dance. We sit there and talk, have fun with people, but we let them know that this event's about, like, if you see something, you say something. Yeah. So, like, if you see someone with, like, a knife or anything that's not going to be good, or you hear that, like, old Jimmy's about to beat up John after school with two of his other friends, and he doesn't know, like, to reach out. Because, man, when I first walked into the police officer's room, by the way, there's cops on campus, you know what I mean? Multiple. Yeah. And this is a high school, man. Right.
This isn't security. These are
law
enforcement officers.
Law enforcement officers, you know. And you walk in the room, and the first thing you look at is this giant whiteboard that's bigger than this wall right here. And I started, like, reading him. And I, honest to God, like, when I sat there, I see the numbers and then the writings and stuff. And I was like, oh, is this all your guys' codes? Like, and that's what I thought. I was like, oh, this 0012, whatever. This is the code for this. Or this is the code for that. Like, this is just like a cheat sheet. He goes, no, this is all what's happened this year. And you're just like, what? There's kidnappings, there's stabbings, there's fights, there's
at school.
At school. Like,
fuck.
This is high school, man.
Yeah.
High school.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about kids that are under the age of 18.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And most of them aren't seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are in that like freshman, sophomore era.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you have people fighting over girls, fighting over guys that didn't do this or this girl. It's like, so it's just kind of like trying to let them know that, we got all these like, public eye people. You have
Mm-hmm.
Ricardo Laguna, who does BMX biking.
Yep.
He's a big help here in Las Vegas. Then you have DJ Ocho, who does the DJing for the Las Vegas Lights, the soccer team. He also has his own little radio station. You have JR Beatbox, who's a human beatboxer who has his own little company, everything like that. But we all come together and we have fun with these kids. So then when you have fun with them, then you could sit there, oh, I remember that guy. It was part of this event. And then you're kind of like, okay, this is what it is. So we go to different schools and we try to have fun with the kids, enjoy the time, have dance-offs, and just kind of communicate, let them know, like, Police Officer Terry isn't such an asshole.
Right.
He's not here trying to sit there and put a little bit of drugs on you to get you in jail. He's trying to sit there and prevent that, to make sure you have a good life, to make sure you can, you are everyone's safe. So
that's awesome, man.
I use my platform to make sure everybody's good, man.
That's what's up.
It's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't give back, what's the point of it?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Have you always been that way in terms of giving back?
Always.
Yeah.
Always, man.
Does that come from your dad, or do you have like a coach, or like where does that come from for you?
It's my family, my mom, my dad. Like, treat others how you want to be treated. That cliche saying, and it's true, man. My family, like my dad's side of the family, we all came. Well, I shouldn't say we. Like I just came out my mom. You know what I mean? So, and I was here in America, but my family in Cuba, my grandpa, when he got his job at Ford and they transferred him over to Kansas City, Missouri, their only goal was to build a family, or to build a family's home and do all that, but to bring their family back over. Yeah. So during that time, they'd work their butt off to make a lot of money to get, one cousin over, one uncle over, one family member over at a time, or and stuff like that. And they all lived in our house. Yeah. So throughout my childhood, I was blessed with having to live with my cousins, or my second cousins, my uncles, my aunts, everybody. Because when they came over, they lived with us until my grandpa could help get them on their feet and get them a job where they made enough money to buy their own place. So they stayed with us about 6 months, a little bit more. Yeah. And then they'd move out, and then the next family group would come in. Oh, wow. And they move out. But I'm telling you, we have like, a family of 4, they'll live in 1 bedroom. Yep. Because, we didn't have that much, but that's what it was like in Cuba. They all lived in 1 bedroom. There wasn't like a 6, a 6 family bedroom house. It was like you had a 3-bedroom house and you had 12 people staying there. Yeah. So that helped bring them in. And that's how I grew up, learning and seeing how my family treated each other. Yeah. So then that's how I wanted to treat people. And that's awesome, man. We all go through struggles. So I try to give back to those people to let them know, like, not to give up, Sure. Yeah, it's not forever, man. You know, that's good, man. So you got your enterprise going. You got a couple of podcasts going. You kind of like filtering through some ideas there. Yeah. I think the fighter and the fan has the most pull from all the ideas you've thrown at me so far. Tell people about that. Fighter and the fan. I want to send you some traffic, man. Man, Fighter and Fan, I got to bring it back up. I got to start getting on it. But I'll sit down and have coffee. I love coffee. I make my own coffee. I can make you some real coffee right over here. I got the grinder, everything. Yeah, for sure, man. So it's Fighter and the Fan Coffee Talk, and we go into different coffee shops. Just you and a random fan? Random fan. Okay. Random person that hits me up on Instagram. Slides up in your DM. Yeah. Set it up. That's it. Simple as easy. That's all it takes, guys. That's all it takes. You don't have to pull my arm or leg. So, I get in contact with these people, and I tell them about a fight that's coming up. Which are literally every weekend now. Yeah. Which is crazy. Yeah. But I tell them about a fight coming up, and we'll do the main event, and we'll go down. The object is we'll sit down, we'll have some coffee, and we'll talk about it. We'll be like, hey, what do you think about this coffee? And me being like a coffee just snob.
Yeah.
If you mess up coffee, I'm not going to be like, oh, this is good. I'm like, bro, this is terrible.
So how do you feel about Starbucks?
Oh, it's disgusting, man. It's disgusting. That's not coffee, bro. I can't believe you even bring that in my house right now. Like,
I didn't know you were such a fucking connoisseur, man. I'd have waited.
Bro,
sorry.
I don't mess with
I
don't
apologize.
like Starbucks. Dude, Starbucks, they burn their beans to the point where they all have to taste the same. When it's come corporate, you have to make sure you have the same taste.
Right.
If I went to Illinois or if I went to Seattle.
Yeah.
So they just burn their beans so like there's no good roast that they have.
Okay.
You know, when they say medium roast, it's just like crap. And then they say dark roast and it's just shit. You know, it doesn't change.
Right.
But yeah, I don't do that. So I sit there with my fans and we go through some coffee, and then they don't know anything about it. Okay. The best part about coffee is that when you take a sip of good coffee, you can kind of get a little bit more understanding of it. And you're like, oh man, I actually like this. Yeah. And I have a rule, it's straight black. No coffee or no sugar, no cream, because it's not a milkshake. Okay. Coffee's coffee, man. So they'll have it, and you know, they'll give a little rating and stuff, and you know, I'll tell people like, hey, go here, this is a good spot, or dude, do not go here. Yeah, you have terrible coffee. But it's all pour over. It's a certain way to make the coffee, and we go through it. When we have a breakdown, we make some jokes. Then we go into Fighter and the Fan itself, and we start talking about the main card of whatever event it is, and we kind of go back and forth. Like
pre or post?
Pre. Okay. So we'll be like, all right, who are your picks this week? And we'll start off with the first card. So we'll sit here and be like, we'll bounce ideas back and forth, and then we'll just go to the next one. And we'll build that up. And then after that's done, then we go into actually understanding who that fan is and why they're a fan and what they do in their life. And it's very intriguing. There's some really awesome people that you have on there that you listen to their stories, and it's like, you know, we're talking to each other about our stories of how we became through athletics or through this, that, and the other. And then you have these people that are doing the same thing, but they're in the more like basic route of the public eye. Right. You know, they're sitting there and they work a 9-to-5 job, but they're trying to break out of it. You can see their want that they want to break out of the social normalities and the basic lineup of how society deems you should become rich. Sure. So they're trying all these different avenues, and it's very intriguing to see that. But then you got these people that you never want to have on your podcast ever again. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. Oh yeah,
you get it done every once in a while.
Oh yeah,
everything's all good till that camera comes on.
Yeah. You think a camera like you guys have right here would be like more intimidating than an iPhone? Because we sit there and stare at something every day. An iPhone, you're just like, what do I do? Yeah, but it's a rough one, man.
Yeah. Dude, I really hope you bring that back. I wanna tune into it because. As much as I love my brother, I love you, I love Dom, I love Casey, I know nothing about the fight game. So I feel like the educational value just alone is worth a listen.
No, it helps out.
And you would definitely make it interesting because you're funny as fuck.
Oh, thank you very much.
Love it. Where can my 20%ers find you, support you, and keep up with you?
Man, you can follow me on all my social media platforms are simple. They're the same. It's J Marquez MMA, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, everything.
Tell me about TikTok real quick. That's kind of brand new, right?
TikTok is brand new.
Okay.
So I actually we fall in love with Instagram, and we go through all the Explore page, and you'll spend hours looking at people's stuff. Well, I changed my Explore page to only follow business people. Okay. So I only follow business people on my Explore page. So when things pop up, Gary V, who other people? I can't even think of them.
Cardone.
Yeah.
All those guys. Yep.
So I'll follow them. And Gary V was like, hey, 20 years ago or some years ago, Instagram came into play and everybody was pushed away, or everybody was like, nah, don't do this, that, and the other. And now look what Instagram is. Yep. And then he's like, hey, TikTok is doing the same exact thing as what Instagram did right after Facebook. And everybody's saying the same exact stuff. So we're having the algorithm, get on TikTok. Okay. So TikTok is awesome because the only difference between that and Instagram is that you can actually, like, if you make a video and you make a video or a dance move or whatever, then I can hit duet. And I can actually copy it and use your voice in the video, or I can use your like your dance move, like who did it better, or I can sit there side by side. So like there'd be random people, guys, girls, that would put something on. Like for instance, the last post I had was Dana White finally got on TikTok, and he had like a few hundred followers on there, which is crazy. He's 1 million followers on, 1 million plus followers on Instagram, but on TikTok he only has a few hundred. So I did a duet. He was like, "Hey, you know, we're giving out these 2 free, you know, Xbox games, PS4, UFC 3 games. How many likes do we get?" And someone said 20,000. So then I used his voice and I dubbed it over. And I just moved my lips and it sounds like Dana White talking. And I did the same exact thing as him. So it's like you can duet, you can have fun. It's the same thing as Instagram, but like they're shorter videos. And they're more to the point. So now that you had, you know, Instagram where you're sitting there and a minute long, or now these IGTVs, now you get that same full effect, but it's like snappy. And these quick deals. So it's a fun game. You should definitely get on it. You should get on it, post photos of your fans, have them do like some sort of dance and see how many people you can get on there. Not today. We ain't doing nothing.
Cool. So all platforms, J Marquez MMA.
Yeah. And then you get on YouTube. Juju State of Mind is my YouTube channel, which has a lot of my prank videos and a lot of my coffee talks or my ratings and stuff like that.
Cool, man. Cool.
So we all in it?
Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming up to Vegas, bro.
Dude, absolutely, man. Appreciate you making the time. For everybody out, all the 20%ers out there, make sure you check out Julian and everything that he's got going on. Support all of his efforts. He's going to be doing a lot of big things above and beyond stepping in the ring and trading blows. So really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on here.
For sure. Make sure you focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. And we'll see you next week.